Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the Russian-Ukrainian war. And it looks like very soon the president of Ukraine will be visiting and addressing the U.S. Congress. Compounding that, it looks like the Biden administration is getting ready to supply the Ukrainian military with another $1 billion in military equipment, which will include Patriot air defense systems. It will include the deployment of the U.S. JDAM, the Joint Direct Attack Munition. These JDAM kits will be used on Ukrainian bombs and or U.S. manufactured bombs would be delivered to the Ukrainians. Now, at this point, we don't really know how effective the Ukrainian Air Force is. We don't know how many fighter bombers the Ukrainian military currently is using. Most of what it was using prior to the start of the conflict were Soviet-era aircraft, Su-27s, MiG-29s, Su-24s. Now, how many of those remain after 300 days of fighting? Very difficult to say. Again, I would probably argue that the HIMARS in those systems are more effective in terms of the types of fighting that we are seeing and the capabilities of the Ukrainian military versus the JDAMs. But could the JDAM package being offered to the Ukrainians, could that be something else? Could that be disguised as direct support, direct military support by the United States? Would the Russians have the capability to even know if a F-35 Lightning II stealth aircraft crossed into Ukrainian airspace and dropped a small diameter bomb package at distance? I believe that this new arms package, by handing over allegedly JDAM systems to the Ukrainians, would give plausible deniability for the possible use of American aircraft against Russian targets. Now, can I prove that? Absolutely not. But, now, this is the big but, if we have Russian forces that are attacked by JDAMs and then can physically show the evidence that JDAMs were used, the United States can then say simply, well, we gave them to the Ukrainians. That was the Ukrainians, it wasn't us. And again, the reason I discuss this and talk about this as a possibility is, do the Ukrainians even have that kind of capability at the moment? Can the Ukrainians launch aircraft from Western Ukraine and drop bombs on the Eastern Donbass with Russian air defense systems that are present? because it seems logical at this point. The only real successful air-to-ground operations that could be conducted by Ukraine and its allies would be with the assistance of U.S. stealth aircraft. These JDAMs work better when launched at altitude. You get more range, and they're just more effective. We know the Ukrainians right now, when they do operate aircraft, are having to operate at very low altitudes. So the idea that the Ukrainians would start suddenly operating at altitude to drop these JDAMs would be suicidal, especially for some of these Ukrainian aircraft. So it'll be interesting to see what this is really all about. And is it, again, giving plausible deniability to the United States to actually attack Russian targets with JDAMs? It would be very difficult under current conditions for Russian forces to identify these F-35s. And I've talked about this in the past, and obviously there's some pushback in the comment section, but you can't eliminate it. In terms of the ongoing fighting, again, we're continuing to see the meat grinder in Bakhmut, east of Kramatorsk, the meat grinder near Avdiivka as well. The disposition of Ukrainian forces, again, in the east is impressive, to say the least. The amount of forces the Ukrainians have deployed in this area. And you can see it there for yourself. Is this exact? No, it's not, but it gives you a rough idea of what is happening on the ground in terms of Ukrainian deployment. We're also continuing to hear that the Russians are planning something. It is reported that the Russians are preparing a force of anywhere from 200,000 to upwards to 700,000 personnel for eventual operations, I believe will come in late summer. Some would argue earlier than that, some would argue later than that, but ultimately we'll find out. But that's what at this point the Russians appear to be doing. They did the immediate call-up of reserves. That has stabilized the lines for now. And then we're seeing a secondary and then a third call-up of reserves in which additional training is underway by the Russians to create an even larger force to possibly come in and conduct more offensive operations, specifically east of the Dnieper River, near Zaporizhia, and possibly near Chernihiv. But we'll see what happens. That's where we're at for today. We will continue to monitor the situation. We will continue to monitor this visit by the Ukrainian president to Washington, D.C., and we'll definitely report on more information as we get it. Thank you for joining us today. Have a good day.